I want to watch the news.
Are you making headway at least?
This is the news.
Smack-a-magob, it's time for the only news that matters. And in a new interview with Greg Prato of Guitar World, Tom Gabriel Warrior talked about his unending love for Ibanez, the benefits of writing bloodthirsty riffs on tiny practice amps, and the absolute crucial thing that people completely underestimate in achieving a guitar sound. In the following excerpt, he reveals some of his early guitar influences. He says, "It's not very original, but I would be lying if I didn't credit Tony Iommi. I actually learned playing guitar by literally sitting in front of my record player with the vinyl on that was Black Sabbath Volume 4 back in 1982. Always putting the needle at the same point and trying to figure out how to play those riffs. I couldn't explain it at the time, but I heard that Black Sabbath music and it didn't follow the harmonies that you would expect from any other band. It wasn't all melodic and logical. They always found some dark twist in their riffs, and I wanted to know, how did he do that?" So I actually sat down as a complete nobody, not knowing anything, and tried to find how he played this on my own guitar neck, and what is the style of Black Sabbath. That's how I started playing guitar. Then later there were people such as Kevin Highborn from Angel Witch. To me, he was a huge inspiration because he too took Black Sabbath to a different level, which I totally loved. Of course, I was also blown away like the rest of the world when Ozzy Osbourne brought out Randy Rhoads. I couldn't believe what I heard. And there you go. Tom G. Warrior, a legend. I'm a big fan of Celtic Frost or Celtic Frost, however you want to pronounce it. Especially Morbid Tales and Into Mega Ethereon. Those are my favorites. But I love Into the Pandemonium. No, I know a lot of people hate and love Cold Lake. I'm one of those that hate it. And I wasn't very big on Vanity either. But I loved Monothesis. That album was great. I loved it. I got to see them on the Into the Pandemonium tour, opening for Anthrax, who was headlining. They were doing the Among the Living tour. Exodus, Pleasure of the Flesh, and opening was Celtic Frost doing, it was the Into the Pandemonium tour. And it was amazing. And then I didn't see them till 2007, I guess, with the Monothesis album. And I saw them twice. I saw them headline the Culture Room, and then they came back and they opened for Typo Negative. And I was at that one too, and they were great, man. And I absolutely love Celtic Frost. I'm not the biggest Hellhammer guy, I gotta tell you. I know they're very loved and very influential, but I can't get into that Hellhammer stuff. I love what he did with Coroner. And, I followed, Tom G. Warrior, and big fan of his, and it's awesome how he brought up Volume 4 was what got him started. That's so cool, back in 82, listening to my favorite Black Sabbath album and cutting his teeth learning guitar off that album. No wonder he turned out to be such a badass. And it's cool how he brings up Randy Rhoads as well. Back then, like around 85-ish, when I first heard Celtic Frost, I was like, this is what I need. Because a lot of my bands that I grew up loving, they started getting a little, I don't know. I wasn't into The Ultimate Sin by Ozzy or Turbo or Somewhere in Time. These are all bands I love, but then they did these albums and I was like, man, Celtic Frost Merciful Fate, Venom, Metallica, Slayer, all that stuff came around that time. So I jumped on that bandwagon. I really didn't pay too much attention, even though I went to those tours, but it was these heavy underground bands. To me, that saved metal. Saved metal for me, when all these bands got poofy and glammy and their music was all sugary and it just didn't have that edge that their earlier albums had. I got all this edgy stuff, man. The thrash, the underground, which later became like black metal, but this was extremely influential for, metal that became more popular when all the other, the hairband stuff kind of died out. This stuff stayed strong and influenced a lot of the future metal bands, a lot of the black metal bands and death metal bands. Just awesome stuff. And I just said this the other day, I really, really love that early Slayer stuff when they wore that macabre makeup. And I was saying a big F you to all the San Francisco bands that told Slayer to take off that makeup, and a big F you to Slayer for listening to them. And Celtic Frost had that makeup too, but I don't know, they took it off on their own, but they had that kind of macabre look in the beginning, and they were so original, and they were brutal but interesting. It was just amazing music, Celtic Frost. And I'm going to keep calling them Celtic and Celtic throughout this whole thing. And like all metal, it all comes back to Black Sabbath. Tony Iommi, the riff master, the inventor of metal. If I had my way, I'd get that first Black Sabbath song off the first Black Sabbath album and rename it Fuck Blue Cheer. Because Blue Cheer to me was doing nothing different than what Hendrix was doing before them. It was great hard rock, and I don't hate Blue Cheer, but they are not metal. Not in my world. It's Black Sabbath that made it metal, and Judas Priest perfected it. But either way, Black Sabbath rules, and look at all they've inspired. There's just so many amazing bands. You have your Celtic Frost and Merciful Fate, and Judas Priest were inspired by Black Sabbath. I mean, it's incredible what Black Sabbath has brought to this world of metal, because I forgot who it was, man. There was a rock star that said, you hear any metal and it's like Black Sabbath. They got that from Sabbath. All metal bands, they had a different sound, but they all had that DNA of Tony Iommi, who pretty much ejaculated all over these bands' moms. And they gave birth to all these kids that grew up to being kick-ass bands and were influenced by Black Sabbath, but yet come up with their own stuff like Celtic Frost and Slayer. Metallica was influenced by Black Sabbath. Everybody was. If you play metal, you were into Black Sabbath. Anyway, that's it. So this is really cool, man. Tom G. Warrior said that he was influenced by Tony Iommi and learned how to play guitar by sitting in front of a record player and listening to Black Sabbath Volume 4. That owns tremendously. So thank you so much for watching, everybody, and enjoy your Black Sabbath Sunday. And please subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Click that little notification bell and leave your comments below. How do you feel about Celtic Frost? And how do you feel about Celtic Frost? Leave it in the comments below. And, do you like them? Do you hate them? And, how much does Volume 4 own? What an amazing album. Leave your comments below. I would love to read that. And like the video. It's good for the YouTube algorithms. So stay frosty. Listen to Black Sabbath and smack 'em a gob.
Farewell and adieu to you fair Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu, you ladies of Spain. For we've received orders for to sail back to Boston. And so never more shall we see you again.